discussions. Also, many countries such as the United States, which have had, still may have hostages, may also be interested in a release of them. So I think that this is not unexpected. It also made sense to hold these talks in Qatar, because that's where part of the leadership, the political leadership of Hamas, is located. This has, of course, created tensions, and the Israelis had to promise the Qataris that they were not going to kill any Hamas leader in Qatar. So I think that this is completely understandable, and there is a lot of pressure in Israel at the moment to continue with efforts to release the hostages. So Netanyahu's government had no real option other than try to work this channel of communications and negotiations at the same time that it is pursuing its military campaign.
It's interesting, of course, as you say, those lines have to be opened up and so on to get that negotiation. There has been a ceasefire for a few days, but really it seems Hamas, Israel claim, have broke the ceasefire before the end of it. For example, there has been bad faith towards the end of the ceasefire. Is there any prospect of getting another one, do you think, or some form of resolution to this crisis? Where does it go now, do you think, Domitilla?
Well, there are two questions which are interlinked. One is the fate of the remaining hostages. I think we're talking about 136, if I'm not mistaken. So I presume that negotiations might restart. I think that efforts are going to be carried out because there is, as I said, pressure inside Israel. There was a big demonstration last night in support of releasing the hostages top priority. So I think that this might be a temporary moment, but the requests probably of Hamas are that so that maybe the Israelis are not able to agree to them. There's one question about release of women and children, which was promised, and Hamas has not delivered. So
yes,
I think
and actually, they, if I think I'm right in saying, they've separated mothers from their children as well, in which they said they wouldn't do.
There is also the question of whether these hostages are alive, because as we know, a few days ago, it was admitted by Hamas that 2 children and the mother had been actually killed. And this also becomes a PR fiasco for Hamas, which in a way, in this release of hostages, is gaining some popularity, especially inside Gaza, because the release of Palestinians who were in Israeli prisons, gives them some kind of, victory for the attack they carried out. So they can argue, yes, this is terrible, but at least at the same time, we are getting some of our, civilians and soldiers back. So despite the bombing of Israel, there is a reason for this. Of course, I think what Hamas is going to try is going to extend to push for an extension of the ceasefire. And at the same time, it's probably going to keep some hostages till the very end to either guarantee their future of immunity, because I think that's very much probably in Hamas's mind, that the leaders get some form of immunity, and that maybe there's talk that they might be able to leave Gaza and settle somewhere else. But the big question, of course, the second big question is what is going to happen with Gaza? Who's going to rule Gaza?
Yeah, well, we've certainly heard from Netanyahu that Israel will have some sort of security rule when this ends. What do you think that looks like?
It's difficult to envisage what it really means. And here is where there are a lot of discussions and debates and different propositions. The Americans have made it clear that they do not want the Israelis either ruling Gaza again or re-establishing a siege around Gaza or reducing the territory of Gaza. But the Israelis, it seems from what I've read, and I don't know if these are verified reports, they seem to be unconfirmed, that the Israelis are thinking of reducing the population of Gaza to sort of a bare minimum and maybe forcing Palestinians out of Gaza, sending them to Arab countries. There was even reports that they might be thinking of sending them, that they would end up, in Europe. So, opening up the maritime border so that they would just leave. I think this is a proposition that is not going to get a lot of traction among Israeli allies. So I think that it's very difficult to imagine whether